Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. The new Superman movie was just released, and big surprise, James Gunn has already been talking about how everything that happens in the movie affects the future of the DCU in the other movies and characters that they're working on right now, like Batman, the new Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, the new versions of The Flash. And during this very long, recent conversation, he spoke at length about Henry Cavill coming back in the new DCU as a totally different character. The same way that Jason Momoa is also coming back as Lobo, not as his Aquaman. So maybe some of you are not surprised that Henry Cavill is coming back, because he did say that he was coming back in the future a couple years ago when James Gunn announced that he was going to recast him. Everybody remembers at the time it just felt like Henry Cavill was really being done dirty by the studio. James Gunn clarifies what was actually going on behind the scenes while that was all happening. But at the time that happened, this is 2022, nobody really knew what that would actually look like, or if it was just platitudes and them just trying to placate all the fans that were mad that Henry Cavill was getting fired as Superman. It was just absolute chaos at the time after the Black Adam movie came out. Cut to now, in present day, this is James Gunn point blank saying that this is actually a real thing and he's not messing around with everyone. Henry Cavill will come back as a different character at some point. So we'll break it all down, because on top of the really cool Henry Cavill announcement, like really happy to hear that he's actually coming back, James Gunn also kind of puts The Rock on blast for causing a lot of the chaos behind the scenes in not changing the hierarchy of power in the DC universe. This is the part where he specifically talks about Henry Cavill coming back.
Would it be too confusing to cast him in your DC universe going forward?
As another character?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No, I talked to him about it on that day. So yeah, no, I would love to put Henry in something. Yeah.
So you hear that, the big question now everyone has, if Henry Cavill is coming back in a future DC movie, which character is he going to play? Because it does sound like James Gunn is just as tired of the multiverse trope as Marvel and general audiences have gotten. Marvel is trying to blow through the Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars as fast as possible so they can end their multiverse saga in the next couple of years. This is why I don't think that James Gunn would fire Henry Cavill as the main Superman just to turn around and bring him back as his original DCEU Superman from another universe, saying that the DCEU is another universe, which I do think is a smart thing to actually do. Just say the DCEU is a completely separate universe, which will explain why some things are similar and some things are totally different in the new DCU.
Who the f*** are you?
There was even a multiverse scene during the Peacemaker Season 2 trailer that makes it seem like James Gunn already kind of canonized this idea. You actually see his father's pocket dimension has a doorway to another dimension. It's the same type of pocket dimension that Lex Luthor has in the new Superman movie that he said existed between universes. Keyword, between different universes. Peacemaker then winds up running into the alternate universe version of himself. So it's just an easy way to say that all the DCEU movies and shows those characters took place in another universe. So the last couple of days when I first saw James Gunn say yes, he was going to bring Henry Cavill back, my immediate thought, like just point blank thought, was just to let him be the new DCU Zod. Kneel before Zod, kneel before Henry Cavill. I've already seen the new Superman movie 3 different times, and during each of those times, I did not see any specific Zod references, so just a blank canvas for DCU Zod. They can do whatever they want to with that character. And because James Gunn also confirmed that Jor-El and Lara's message about conquering Earth, lording over it as king with his superpowers and his super harem was 100% real, the whole message was not doctored by Lex Luthor. It actually allows James Gunn to do something radically different with Zod than they did during the DCEU Man of Steel movie, conquering Earth to create new Krypton. That was his thing in Man of Steel. Like now that's Jor-El's mission in the DCU. Bradley Cooper is now the DCU Jor-El. We'll see if they ever wind up trying to adapt the Mr. Oz storyline from the more recent comics, where Jor-El finds a way to survive and come back in present day. But a lot of you have also asked if making Henry Cavill play someone different so close to the Superman mythos might be too on the nose for James Gunn. Like if James Gunn wouldn't cast Henry Cavill as someone so connected to Superman just because he came from Superman in the DCEU. There are literally thousands of non-Superman connected DC characters Henry Cavill could play. He would be amazing as any of them. So everyone let me know in the comments, which other DC characters do you want to see Henry Cavill play in the future movies? Also, another thing to consider, because Henry Cavill is trying to launch his new Warhammer TV show and movies at Amazon, he's in the live-action Voltron movie, he's in the Highlander reboot movie that they're making right now. That's why he has all the long hair. You've been seeing him walk around with this really long mane on him.
There are a lot of characters from the Warhammer universe that I want to be, but I can only really be one. Because once I'm one, then I can't be others.
5 years, you'd make a very good Greg Horizon, I think.
That would be exciting, yes, but then I burn Primarchs.
He's got a ton of other franchises that he's launching right now, so I doubt that whoever he winds up playing in the DCU will be a main role. It's more likely that he'd only show up for really big stuff or smaller background roles, so don't expect him to be in every single DC movie from now on. Like, this isn't like a long time, many movie kind of thing. This is more like him coming back in a couple future movies. Now, the other part of James Gunn's interview about all of this Henry Cavill chaos back when Black Adam was coming out was him putting The Rock on blast. James Gunn putting The Rock on blast. And it is pretty funny. Now, he doesn't name him during this conversation. Like, he tries to be very diplomatic about it. But the person he's talking about that's causing all these problems behind the scenes is The Rock. If you know, you know.
He's trying to be as diplomatic as possible.
Diplomatic as possible.
There were other people that
wanted to take on what they wanted to do with DC and were trying to force their way. And it just was never a part of the equation for David Zaslav, who was the head of WBD.
So what he meant when he said the person was trying to force their control over the DC movies, The Rock basically was going behind the backs of a couple different producers, the previous regime before James Gunn was hired to reboot everything. That was Toby Emmerich, Walter Hamada, Michael DeLuca, Pamela Abdy. I think one of those, maybe Walter Hamada had already left the studio, but basically it was the regime right before James Gunn that was trying to develop a brand new 10-year plan for DC right after David Zaslav had been hired. So a lot of this Black Adam drama with Henry Cavill in The Rock all happened around the time David Zaslav had been hired to fix Warner Brothers, and he was making this big new DC plan for 10 years. It sounded like at the time they were using the Flash movie to set this up, and it was basically going to be a 10-year Crisis on Infinite Earths movie Justice League plan. Like they did a version of Crisis on Infinite Earths in the Arrowverse. They were going to do a big movie version of that, but they wound up deleting a lot of those scenes because while that was all going down, James Gunn got hired to reboot everything. And he's like, no, we're not going to be setting this stuff up. Everybody get rid of all the scenes that were teasing things that were not going to pay off anymore. I did a much longer deleted scenes video for the Flash movie that I'll link in the description below. You can learn about all those deleted scenes. But the idea is that 10-year plan that the previous regime had come up with under David Zaslav was a DCEU-based plan with Henry Cavill Superman, Ben Affleck's Batman, Michael Keaton Batman was going to take over as the main Batman for a little while. He was going to show up at the end of the Flash movie instead of the George Clooney Batman. But like I said, James Gunn gets hired while that's all going down. Then he has them re-edit everything and change the end of the movie so they don't set up things that they're not going to pay off.
Peter and I, the right thing to do is to sit down with him and talk to him. Yeah. And we sat down, we talked to him. He was an absolute gentleman, a great guy about it.
In the new interview, James Gunn is clarifying what was actually going down during that period, why it was so chaotic. As he says, the Black Adam movie was being released, like it was literally coming out in theaters. That Henry Cavill video he posted saying he was coming back comes out. What happened right at the same time is that James Gunn was in the middle of signing his contract, like the ink was drying on his contract, and he'd already worked out his new reboot DCU plan with David Zaslav. Remember, David Zaslav, even though everybody points to him being like the most evil person on the planet Earth running Warner Brothers right now, James Gunn had already orchestrated this whole 10-year plan for his DCU, and David Zaslav had okayed to say this is going to be the actual plan. But what James Gunn is saying is that there was this vacuum of information where there were different teams of producers at Warner Brothers while he was busy signing his contracts that were not communicating with each other. So there was still a team of producers that didn't know the new James Gunn plan and still thought that they were proceeding with the Henry Cavill Man of Steel 2 plan, which is why Henry Cavill, who wasn't obviously in on those conversations with David Zaslav and James Gunn, still thought that he was coming back as Superman, which is why he released that video saying that he was coming back for Man of Steel 2. All the people behind the scenes at Warner Brothers start to get on the same page and learn James Gunn's new plan, which he says he then sat down with Henry Cavill and explained why it was all chaotic. And Henry Cavill was a total gentleman about like, oh, I understand why this is so confusing. Please let me be the one to announce that I am not going to continue as Superman. which they let him do. We saw the second message that Henry Cavill posted a little while after that first video that he posted. It was very sad, but during it, he said, I talked to James Gunn, and there was a chance that I would come back as a future character at some point in DC. And now, James Gunn in present day is just confirming that, like, oh yeah, he is planning on bringing Henry Cavill back as a different character. But if you're still confused about why The Rock caused so many problems behind the scenes, it's the idea that they were trying to come up with a longer-term plan for Henry Cavill's Superman character that did not include him coming back earlier. The Rock tried to go behind their backs with other producers higher up on the food chain at Warner Brothers in that previous regime so that he could put Henry Cavill in his post-credit scene in recentering the DC universe on Black Adam's character. So the idea is that The Rock was basically trying to make the DC universe turn around, like very egotistical kind of move. The hierarchy of power did not wind up changing.
Now what you're going to see here is why the hierarchy of power in the DC universe is about to change.
And even though we love to clown on The Rock for all that stuff that went down, like you'll see that meme posted for a long time now in different contexts, like it just works so well. It's kind of like the Grant Gustin Flash meme over Oliver Queen's grave. I would not be surprised if The Rock returns in some kind of cameo scene at some point in some future DC movie in the next 10 years, like some background role that isn't Black Adam. Really, I think the template for how this all works with DCEU actors, those original Justice League actors coming back, is Jason Momoa coming back as Lobo. Like, if it's that easy for him to come back, really would like to see Grant Gustin come back in some way, though, even if it's not as a version of The Flash. He's still not quite old enough to be Jay Garrick. It sounds like Jay Garrick will be quite a bit older because there is Jay Garrick during the new Superman movie. I did a whole video breaking down all the Justice Society characters and all the legacy older characters that show up in Easter eggs in the background. So I'll post a link for that at the end of this. To his credit, Henry Cavill sounds like he's down to do just about any character in DC. Ryan Reynolds even said it was super easy to get him on board for Calvary during Deadpool and Wolverine. Marvel is releasing Fantastic Four next week. I'll be doing a whole bunch of videos for that as well. So everybody make sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss anything. Click here for all my Superman videos like that Flash, the alternate ending, all the deleted scenes, my full breakdown, and click here to learn about Henry Cavill also coming back in the Marvel universe as a totally different character. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.